Welcome to Informatica Cloud 201 on-demand course, Exception Handling. After completing this module, you will be able to understand requirement of exception handling, discuss types of exceptions, discuss user-defined, fatal and non-fatal exceptions, discuss reject files. Let us discuss why exception handling is required. Maintaining data quality is most important in any data warehouse project. So ETL architects and data architects spend a lot of time defining the exception handling approach. The Informatica Cloud is given with a set of options to take care of the exception handling in all of your ETL jobs. In this module, let's see how do we leverage these options to handle exceptions and errors. Before we discuss how error handling is done, let us understand what are the different kind of exceptions that may occur while executing various Informatica Cloud tasks. You have to deal with different types of exceptions in an ETL job. When you run a task, Informatica Secure Agent may encounter fatal or non-fatal errors or exceptions. Apart from that, there could be few user-defined exceptions. Let us discuss them one by one. User-defined exceptions. Data issues critical to data quality which might get loaded to the database unless explicitly checked for quality. These types of exceptions occur because of improper handling of data by the business user. For example, a credit card transaction with a future transaction data can be loaded into the database unless the transaction date of every record is checked. Non-fatal exceptions. Exception which could get ignored by the secure agent and cause the records drop out from the target table. For example, a data conversion transformation error out and fail the record from loading to the target table. Fatal exceptions. A fatal error occurs when secure agent cannot access the source, target, or repository. This can include loss of connection or target database errors such as lack of database space to load data. For example, exceptions such as database connection errors which force secure agent to stop running the workflow. Let us now discuss the user-defined exception or error handling techniques in detail. Business users cause these types of exceptions which might be critical to the quality of data getting loaded to the target tables. To handle such exceptions, Informatica Cloud Services provide us with two types of exception handling techniques. They are the error handling functions and the user-defined error tables. Error handling functions. You can use two functions provided by Informatica Cloud Services to define the user-defined exception capture logic. Error. This function causes secure agent to skip a row and issue an error message. This message will be defined by the end users. The error message displays in the session log or written to the error log tables based on the error logging type configuration in the session. Abort stops the session and issues a specified error message to the session log file or written to the error log tables based on the error logging type configuration in the session. When secure agent encounters an abort function, it stops transforming data at that row. It processes any rows read before the session aborts. You can use error and abort in an expression transformation to validate the data. Error handling functions are easy to implement with very less coding efforts, but once the exceptions are detected, they are written in the session log file. The session log file contains a lot of other information pertaining to all the tasks being executed in a particular Informatica Cloud session. Hence, to get the details of the exception from the session log might be a tedious task for the end user. To avoid this disadvantage of exception handling functions, you can create your own error log tables and capture the error records into it. You can configure your session properties so that during data transformation, data quality will be checked and any record violating the quality check will be moved to error tables. Typical ETL design will read error data from the error table along with the source data. Record flags will be used to identify the reprocessed records and the records which are identified for reprocessing. The next type of exceptions that occur during the processing of various Informatica Cloud tasks are the non-fatal errors. A non-fatal error is an error or an exception that does not force the session to stop on its first occurrence. However, you can set the Stop on Error option in the session properties of Informatica Cloud Service to indicate how many fatal errors the task can encounter before it stops the session. Enter the number of non-fatal errors you want to allow before stopping the session. If you specify 0, non-fatal errors do not cause the session to stop. There are three main types of non-fatal errors. Reader error. This error happens while reading from the database source or flat file or any other kind of source systems. Writer errors. This error occurs while writing to the target or database. Transformation errors. This error is encountered by the integration services while transforming the data. The non-fatal exception causes the records to be dropped out in the ETL process, which is critical to quality. Hence, you must handle these exceptions so that critical data is protected. Informatica Cloud provides us with three different ways to handle non-fatal exceptions. They are default field value setting, error handling settings, row error logging. We will discuss each of these techniques in detail in the coming slides. Let us now discuss how can you handle non-fatal exceptions with default field value setting. Using the default value property is a good way to handle exceptions caused due to null values and unexpected transformation errors. The designer assigns default values to handle null values and output transformation errors. In the screenshot that you see here, there is an expression validating the field salary. If the salary of any record is not provided and is null, it will not be wise to discard that record due to this reason. Instead, you can set a default value for all those records for which salary is null. Hence, if salary is null, the default value would be 0. Otherwise, the actual value of salary would be returned from the expression transformation. Another type of non-fatal exceptional handling technique is row error logging. This technique helps in capturing any exception which is not considered during the design and coded in the mapping. It is the perfect way of capturing any unexpected exceptions. You do not have any error configuration required in the mapping creation stage. After the mapping is created, use this mapping to create a mapping configuration task or MCT. While configuring the session of the MCT under the Schedule tab, you can set the session properties for error handling as shown in this image. Let us now discuss each of the property displayed under Error Handling Session property in detail. Stop on errors indicates how many non-fatal errors a secure agent can encounter before it stops the session. If it is set to 0, then the secure agent immediately stops on as soon as it encounters an error. On stored procedure error, if you select the stop session, secure agent stops the session on errors executing a pre-session or post-session stored procedure. On a pre-session command task error, if you select the option, secure agent stops the session on errors while executing pre-session shell commands. The pre-post SQL error is when selected, secure agent stops the session on errors while executing pre-session or post-session SQL. Let us now discuss few more exception handling settings using which we could create a table containing the details of the error by extracting it from the session log. This makes it easy for the user to fetch the reason for the error. Note that this is not an out-of-the-box feature of Informatica Cloud. We need to configure some settings to accomplish this. The properties for these settings are error log type. This setting specifies the type of error log to be created. It can be a table in relational database or a flat file. Error log file directory. This setting specifies the directory where the log file is to be created. This directory must be local to the system where the secure agent is installed. Error log file name. Error log file name specifies the exact name of the file where relational or flat file logs can be written. Log row data. This specifies whether or not to log the transformation row data in the error log file. Log source row data. This setting specifies whether or not to log source row data in the error log file. Data column delimiter. If this setting is on, data will be delimited by the specified character in DB column. Let us now discuss some pros and cons of row error logging technique. Some pros are: the row error logging technique is an out-of-the-box solution provided by Informatica. Hence, you do not have to buy any additional licenses or download plugins to get the feature available to you in your org. This technique captures all types of error, including those which are unexpected. This technique requires less coding and testing efforts by the development teams to catch and debug errors in transformations and mappings. However, there are few cons as well. If an error occurs after an active transformation, a secure agent will not be able to capture source data into the error table, so it becomes difficult to debug and fix the errors. This method also incurs an additional overhead to the session performance, although this is expected and acceptable. Let us now discuss the fatal exceptions in detail. Fatal exceptions result in stopping the session. All the reading and writing are stopped and the secure agent roll back all the data which is not committed to the target database. This happens when there is a loss of connection and secure agent is not able to access the source, target, or repository. This can include loss of connection or target database errors such as lack of database space to load data. When the session encounters fatal error, secure agent terminates the session. Let us now understand what are bad files. Bad files are often termed as reject files, which hold the data for the entire row, which is rejected by the target while writing. Whenever a session is created with a target, reject files are also created along with it. The file always appends the data to the bad file for each load. Why do we need bad files? Bad files always extend the scope of error tracking. They help you to get the record and the values which got rejected. And with the help of the information available in the session log, you can perform some analysis to track the exact error and take steps to correct it accordingly. You might also use the bad file to send it to the users as an attachment with some modification to the record using scripting. How does this work? The file always appends the data to the bad file for each load. A flat file with the extension of .bad is created for each target. Secure agent assigns the name of the bad file same as the name of the target instance. Even if the session doesn't have any rejected records, still secure agent creates a bad file with 0 size, of course. In this demo, we will focus on 2 ways to catch and mitigate error conditions in Informatica Cloud. We will first use the error handling functions, that is, error and abort, in an expression transformation inside a mapping to log the errors in the session log file. Then, we will create a mapping configuration task and use the mapping created above. When an error is encountered, the error log is written to the session log file. Next, we will configure the session properties of the mapping configuration task to read the error entries from the session log into a table for better analysis of the errors. Consider your company loads a huge amount of customer data from various sources on a daily basis and then uses the data to contact them. If any of the entries contain incorrect inputs or inputs in wrong format, then these inputs might not get written to the target tables. This would lead to loss of valuable data. To avoid this, we will create a mapping which separates the correct and incorrect data before loading them to the target table. The incorrect records must be loaded into an error table, and using this table, corrections are made to the source data. Finally, the corrected data is sent back to the source for reloading. First of all, log into your Informatica Cloud Training org using your credentials. Hover on Design and click Mapping. To create a new mapping, click the New Mapping button. On the appeared window, enter the name Error Handling 1 and a suitable description such as use error function to separate the valid and invalid data and click OK. Drag and drop the source shape onto the canvas. In the General tab, name it SRC. In the Source tab, select your flat file connection from the Connection drop-down. Source type should be single object. To select object, click the Select button and choose the customer data.csv file and click OK. Add an expression transformation which will be used to validate the input records. Drag and drop an expression shape on the canvas. Link SRC to the new expression shape. Under the New Expression Properties pane in General tab, name the expression EXP Validation. Click the Expression tab. Click the arrow icon and select New Field. In the New Field window, select Field Type as Output Field. Enter the name Valid, Not Valid and select Type as String and click OK. Now click the Configure option besides the Valid, Not Valid field. In the appeared window, enter the expression if to integer sales less than 100, error invalid data sales and click OK. Add a target on the canvas. Name it as TGT in the General tab. Link EXP Validation to the target. Click the Target tab. Select your flat file connection from the Connection drop-down. Select Target Type as Single Object. To select the object, click the Select button. Then from the pop-up window, choose the TGT customer data.csv file and click OK. Here the operation is by default insert because your target file is empty. Now in the Field Mapping tab, select the Field Mapping option as manual, and to match all the common fields, click the Auto Match button. However, the last field sales of the target should not be matched with the field sales of the source. So select that field, click the arrow icon and select Unmap Selected option. Now map the field Valid Not Valid from the source with the field sales of the target. Validate the mapping. Correct the errors if any. Hover on Save and select Save and Run to run the mapping. Select your runtime environment and click Run. You can check the status of the task while it is running from the Activity Monitor. You can check that the task ran with a warning in the activity log with 12 success rows and 3 error rows. These 3 error rows didn't satisfy the format of data for sales. They had a negative value, but sales value can never be negative. So to check the rejected records in the open session log file, click the name of the mapping. Now, click on the View Session Log link. The session log file will automatically be downloaded. Open it and check the row number which consisted of invalid records. You can also observe the details of the record here and check what went wrong. Session log is difficult to understand, so we need to convert it in a proper tabular format by loading it in a flat file or some relational table. For the demo purpose, we will be loading it in a flat file. Again, log in to your Informatica training org. Hover on Task Wizards and select Mapping Configuration. To create a new mapping configuration, click the New button. Give a suitable name to the task. Select your runtime environment. Click the Select button to select the mapping. Select Error Handling 1 from the list and click OK. Click Next. In the Schedule tab, hover down to configure Advanced Session Properties. Select Error Log Type from the Session Property Name drop-down. Select Flat File from the Session Property Value drop-down. Click Add to add new property. Select Error File Name from the Session Property Name drop-down. Name the file as errorlist.csv in the Session Property Value field. Similarly, add log row data and log source row data to the session property name and click Yes. Also, select Data Column Delimiter from the Session Property drop-down and enter comma in the Session Property Value field. Now to run the task, hover on Save and select Save and Run. You can check the status of the task while it is running from the Activity Monitor. You can check that the task ran with a warning in the activity log with 12 success rows and 3 error rows. To view these error rows, open the location where your secure agent is installed and you can locate the error list file using the path Informatica Cloud Secure Agent main rdtmdir error list. Here you can observe all the records consist some error. You can correct them and send them back to the source for reloading. There is another method using which we can directly separate the valid and invalid records using expression and filter transformations. You will be practicing that method in the lab guide. You can also use the abort function instead to error function in the mapping shown in the demo. However, the task will fail as it will stop on the first error and will not load any data in the target. You can observe its result in the session log. This concludes exception handling demonstration. You're now ready to take the lab. In this lab, you will create a mapping and mapping configuration task. Identify exceptions within the mapping configuration task. Verify how to use Informatica Cloud to identify and log errors. Let us now discuss the exception handling in a real-life scenario. An organization is a leader in mobile workspaces, providing virtualization, networking, and cloud services which enable new ways to work better. Few important business needs of the organization are increase marketing campaign effectiveness and lead to opportunity conversion rates by driving the right offer to the right people at the right time. Create clean, consistent, and connected channel partner as well as customer and prospect information to ensure that the organization has a view of existing customer relationships across the product lines. Empower the business to manage partner, customer, and prospect information in a governed and self-service manner. The major challenges which the organization faced while trying to meet the business requirements was data. The organization needed to pull together data from varied source systems, including Salesforce.com, Marketo, external data sources, and their own custom-built customer portal. Account and contact information was incomplete, inaccurate, and more than 40% of CRM contacts were inactive. Slow, error-prone data quality efforts led to duplication rate double the industry standards. Also, some important data didn't get loaded to target systems because they contained few fields with null values or blank data. The organization used Informatica Cloud to get clean, consistent, and correct customer address and contact information. With the help of mappings in Informatica Cloud, data was first verified, and if it was clean, it was loaded to the target table. Incorrect, inconsistent data was fed to a relational table. Later, this incorrect data was cleaned, rectified, and was written to the source system again. It became easy to save, update, and manage the quality of data and maintain the contact with their customers in less time and at a low cost. In this module, we discussed requirement of exception handling, types of exceptions, user-defined fatal and non-fatal exceptions, and reject files.